You are now listening to the Friends of Rugby podcast. Relax your anus. Balls. Thick thighs. Camille Shat. Where's his neck? Eddie Jones. You're fucked, mate. We're nice now.
3, 2, 1. Let's try this a second time here, Frank. We had to stop recording and restart because Frank lost his notes, but he just wrote his notes on the same page right in front of him, just lower than his other notes.
I'm sad. I liked our other intro.
You were scrambling around.
I was losing my mind. That's right. I got my notes. It's 6 words. That's my notes.
Yeah.
It's useful though. It's useful. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Had a relaxing long weekend.
Yes, you did.
Excited to do some podcast, to play podcast
playing
with you.
A little bit podcast. Yeah.
One of my top things to do in the week.
In the basement.
In the
around.
basement, in the Frank dungeon.
Yeah, I think my wife might have cut off the electricity, but we don't care. We were just playing podcast.
Just playing podcast.
We just pretend people are listening.
This is our own world with our millions of listeners.
Yeah, with superstar podcasters.
Superstar podcast, our Patreon is just filling up.
Yeah, we got a live chat.
We should do a
Toys R Us live chat,
live episode.
Yeah,
It'll just be Levi.
Maybe if we're lucky.
He can't make it.
No, we just sit there in silence, waiting for someone to write something.
We're not talking unless someone pipes up.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. I'm just excited. I want to start talking about some rugby. I want to get into the rugby drama and news.
You know how we say there's not really any rugby droughts in the calendar? Not that it's a bad thing, but This is it, isn't it? This is it. This is like the 2 weeks before the rugby championship, after the summer tours. This is the
calm before the storm.
The calm before the storm. Exactly. It doesn't feel like a bad thing. It feels like we just can't get excited about the rugby championship, which isn't as good as the Six Nations. Let's be honest.
I'm excited.
I am. No, genuinely. I think this one might be the one I'm most excited for ever because of the way that the Australia have kind of going through some things. South Africa are in a dominant patch and New Zealand are an unknown quantity. I don't think all 3 of those teams have been in such states of fluctuation. Actually, South Africa aren't No, they are. They're fluctuating. I'm excited to see what they do in attack.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of things to prove, except for Argentina.
Yeah,
they're kind of just there this year.
Yeah, they are. Aren't they?
They're not really they're never talked about. You don't really talk about them.
No,
I don't know what to expect from them.
No.
Let's talk about some current events. Let's talk about some news. Sia Kolisi.
Sia Kolisi has left Racing.
He has left Racing, signed with the Sharks.
Yeah. I don't think this is a big deal, but it does say a lot about French rugby. Discuss.
Yeah, it does say a lot about French rugby. It's not the rugby vacation.
No.
It is the sweatshop of rugby.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's slave labor of rugby.
Yeah, production line.
And Sia Kolisi was making a lot of money in racing.
And to quit because of the not intensity, just the attritional nature of it.
France in general is just the fucking wild, wild west.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
Isn't everything they fucking do? It's just everything they do is like extra.
It's strange though, because they have a bit of a lackadaisical attitude to life and everything else, which is good, right? I like their relaxed attitude. They want to take a lot of vacation. They want to retire. They want to drink some wine and smoke a cigarette, having a good time. And then the one area where they're like, no, fucking hardcore rugby every week is this sport which they put a lot of money into.
It's almost like the place where rugby players go to die.
Yeah.
Because they play, I think they're starting up right away too.
Yeah.
Like they think they only have like a month or 2 months in between the season.
Yeah.
And then they're going.
Maybe that's why they send development squads on their summer tours, because there's
just so much rugby.
Their regular guys genuinely need a break.
Yeah, they do have a really club first approach when it comes to rugby. It's club rugby first.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the same with the fans, but the business side of it, it's club first.
It
but
is.
when you look at the clubs in France.
It's working for them.
It's working. They're packing stadiums, and they're packing stadiums below the top 14.
I would love to do a tour of like sort of southwest France, do Toulon, Toulouse, La Rochelle, and just go to those packed stadiums on the beautiful south of France,
Yeah.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Do like a destination holiday. That's a good business idea, like arranging tours of French rugby venues.
Oh, I bet you anything there's companies that do it.
Probably. Yeah.
There was companies that did stuff like that for like the World Cups.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're expensive though. I looked at some of the pricing, and it was to do like those like packages. They put you up in a hotel.
Yeah.
They travel you around to the different games. You get the game package.
Yeah.
And they were expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're forking out money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, like France is like the owners are mean.
Yeah.
Like the owners are very involved.
Yeah.
Like calling Kolisi fat and
Poor guy. Imagine calling Kolisi fat of all people, like this professional athlete. He's got fucking huge
like
muscles.
look at the owner of who does Dan Bigger play for?
Toulon.
Yeah, and look what the owner said about him.
Jalal.
Yeah,
He's a dickhead, isn't he? Yeah, he is.
like it's just wild there.
Do you know how he made his money originally?
No.
He sold comic books.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was just like a buyer and seller.
I think so, something like that. Yeah, he owns a comic book something.
And then he
Obviously,
owns an empire.
I'm ad-libbing slightly here, but yeah, that's how he made his money initially. Was through comic books, and then he was like obviously a rugby fan, got into rugby, and then was just horrible to all his import players, and they only last about a year. And France chews people up and spits them out. There's a bunch of Welsh guys who've gone out there. George North, Halfpenny, Reese Webb, Jonathan Davis, and none of them really improved. They just went out there for the money. Dan Lydiot, they got kind of chewed up and sent home a few years later, because it is so attritional. And I think Sia Kolisi leaving is maybe a more public indication of that, right?
Yeah, because you're playing.
Oh, yeah.
They're paying, you're playing,
yeah,
and they don't give a fuck.
No, they don't care.
It's like, oh, I'm really sorry. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm paying you a lot of money.
I'm paying you a lot of money. You're getting out there.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
better be good.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to burn my cigarette on your chest.
Yeah.
Just waterboarding the players.
Yeah.
Until they want to play.
Yeah, seriously. I think him going back to Sharks is a good thing, though. I think Sharks have had a bit of a weird season considering the squad they've have. And I think having Sia Kolisi, no one's going to turn that guy down, are they? Maybe
No.
we're sort of seeing all the South Africans are coming home.
He'll be president of South Africa one day.
He's such a good leader, isn't he?
He's got to be the most famous South African.
He's like I don't know. I think Nelson Mandela might be the most famous South African.
Like, sorry. Yeah, I know. Okay. Besides, but
Dave Matthews Band, pretty famous.
Dave Matthews is from
I think so.
South Africa.
I think so, yeah.
I would say, like, right now, though, like, he's got to be the most recognizable face in South Africa.
I don't know. I was actually taking it as part of my job, taking a group of immigrants around the city last week as part of my work. There's a guy in a South African hat. And I went up to him and said, "Oh, Springboks." And he had no idea what I was talking about. Just some South African guy in a South African hat, Springboks hat.
And you didn't know?
He just had a hat on. He
Oh.
thought I was mental. So I don't even know how big it is. I mean, obviously it's big in South Africa, but
I wouldn't be surprised. And him going back home, yeah, it's unfortunate it didn't work out. It was a lot of money. I think they were paying him a little too much.
yeah,
There's a lot of play. Like, he's a good player,
yeah.
but he's a good player in his setup.
Yeah, he is. Or maybe this says something about South Africans playing outside of South Africa as well. You don't get the best out of them a lot of the time. Like, I think Faf de Klerk at Sharks hasn't really been as good as he's been for South Africa. Snyman's obviously the best example just because he didn't bloody play a lot for Munster. Damien de Allende didn't really have the impact. Who was the Ulster? They had Kitsoff, and didn't they have Dwayne Vermeulen as well?
Dwayne Vermeulen played pretty good for Ulster.
He was good, but
he wasn't the game changer.
Right.
Yeah, these guys. Yeah, there is a kind of I think it's not. I'm not going to say South African players. I'm going to say signing these Springbok players.
Right.
There's a different type of attitude, a passion that they bring to the club level than what they bring to the when they put the green gold jersey on.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's become very evident. It's not a very good investment for clubs.
It doesn't seem
Like
to
these
be.
guys are they're country first.
Or on the flip side, it's a really good demonstration when South Africans talk about how much it means to them play for Springboks. Like, there's evidence for that. Look how well they play for the Springboks versus their clubs, even in South Africa, because Sharks and the Bulls, I thought, considering their squads, I mean, the Bulls obviously made pretty far, got to the final of the URC, but both of those clubs I thought should have done better considering the squads they have.
You also have to take into account that Razzie has designed his whole game around these players to fit these players.
Yeah.
To build this winning team that he's built.
Yeah.
So these players are good in this system.
Yeah.
So when you take the player out of the system into a different system, the whole game plan is not revolved around their strengths. Like he looks at all these individual players. He's like, hey, what's the best way I can go about this? How do I get the most out of each one of these players?
Yeah.
Right? When you go into a different club setup, you have a completely different system. I don't know if the coach is like, the coach probably has a system that he wants to implement. And I don't think he's not, a lot of coaches aren't as smart as Razzie.
No.
Right?
Most.
To develop a whole system around each individual player shining and playing like the best rugby they can because his system complements them.
I think a really good example of that is the way he uses Willie Leroux as like a playmaker, because obviously he's a fullback, but he'll often pop up as 10 and sort of dictate a play because he knows that guy has an incredible rugby IQ, and you don't see him play as effectively for club as he does for country,
Yeah, so it's a very... Yeah, so the system, like these players, like, I'm not going to say they look better than they are.
Yeah.
But the system that they play in for the Springboks brings out the best in them.
They just fucking love playing for the Springboks as well, don't they?
And they put their whole heart into it.
They will die for playing for the Springboks.
Probably one of the most passionate international teams.
Yeah. I thought Wales had that tag, but I mean, obviously everyone probably wants that tag and has claim to it at some time or another, but Springboks are definitely wearing that pretty... they're ahead of the pack.
A very evident thing was, who is that Welsh guy that left the squad because he was holding bags and he got
Sam Parry.
Yeah, so Sam Parry leaves the Welsh squad because he doesn't think he's getting the recognition he deserves. He's just holding pads.
Yeah,
and he leaves.
Yeah,
right. You wouldn't see a Springbok player do that ever.
No.
When Manny Lebok didn't get picked for the final.
Yeah.
His only response was, I want what's best for the team. If me being off that team is best for the team, I'm 100% in.
Yeah. And
that's the mentality going into it. He's not like, what's this? I'm going to leave and get my agent to post stuff on Twitter. Like, he's like, the difference in mentality. Like they'll hold water. They'll scramble eggs. They'll fucking vacuum Razzie's car. Like, they'll do whatever it takes to win.
He loves his players as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Do you remember that interview where he's crying talking about Mapimpi?
Yeah.
And you can just see that wasn't faked, was it? He loves his boys.
I heard an interview with Razzie and I can't remember say his name, Ninabar?
I don't know how you say it. Nina Bar is what I say.
Yeah, Ninabar. And the way they were talking, like there's something different there. Like they just have this they've built this teamwork, this open communication, it's just it's hard to describe, but it's just I've never heard anything. I've never heard coaches talk about a team like this, implementing their family, the players' family members into the team.
Yeah,
everyone around them getting information and feedback from the fucking catering guy. Hey, what do you think about this?
It's very Ted Lasso in a way, isn't it?
It is very Ted Lasso. It's like the real life Ted Lasso over there.
Yeah.
And it's just a very open communication. There's no closed doors.
Yeah.
They disagree a lot. I heard they disagree a lot.
Yeah. But you want that, don't you? You want some passion.
So, but the thing is that they disagree when they were doing when they did the 7-1 split.
Yeah.
There was a lot of controversy between the coaching staff.
Yeah.
If they were going to do that or not.
Yeah, because it sounds mental.
Because hey, we're going to do this. Yeah. And then Razzie calls Nina Bar in the middle of the night. He's like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Should I do this? I don't know. And they work everything out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they already have the biggest player pool in the world. They have the most talented players. And now they have these coaches that have taken things to the next level. They could win for a very long time.
It feels that way. And I wonder sometimes, if you do something crazy and it succeeds, you're seen as a genius. If you do something crazy and it fails, you're just seen as an idiot, right? There's a couple of times in the World Cup where they called for a scrum from calling the mark. That needs to go wrong once for no one to ever do it again.
Or the 7-1 split.
Exactly. The 7 and
didn't they play a 7-1 split against Ireland?
I don't know if you remember, but when Ireland played I think they played even a 6-2 and it backfired against England in the Six Nations. They looked kind of stupid, right? Because all of a sudden they had James Lowe popping up at a different position. They had a few of their backline players were all of a sudden in completely the wrong positions.
Park playing in the wing.
Something like that, yeah. And it was all of a sudden, it's like, now you look like fools. Because it's that kind of thing's only got to go wrong once for it to totally backfire. And I wonder, there's obviously some luck involved, but like you said, the depth South Africa have to know that they can play guys in versatile positions. Like someone like Quagga Smith, who is an ex-Sevens player, but is a very strong back rower. I would put a 6-2 or even a 7-1 split in, knowing that I've got Quagga Smith on the bench because he can play in the back line if he needs to, right? And he'll do reasonably well.
He has total trust in his players.
But I'm talking about depth as well, right? You talk about the largest player pool, like that depth is really important for them because a team like Ireland, they're as good as they are, they just do not have that depth, do they? As much as they've got really good academies and pumping out talent, it's never going to be the literal millions of people that South Africa have over them, right?
Yeah, and then the Razzie, I think he literally believes that his starting player and his guy on the bench are equally just as good.
Yeah, and he trusts him, doesn't he? You can see that. Because I remember in the first test against Ireland this summer, Quagga Smith, incidentally, same guy, dropped the ball twice from kickoff. And in a lot of other teams, they'd get shamed and dropped. And Rassie's not going to do that to him. He trusts him. He's going to give him another shot, right? But that's a big, you talk about small margins at international level. You drop the ball from kickoff. That's a basic fucking mistake, isn't it? So.
When he was playing LeBach in the World Cup, there was a lot of controversy around that. A lot of fans were like,
because he stuck with him, didn't he?
He can't kick, he can't do it, and he did change at the end.
Yeah.
He brought Andre Pollard back in,
but it didn't feel mean, did it? It wasn't like Shepherd's crooking him off halfway through the game. He stuck with him.
He did. He stuck with them through the pool stages.
Yeah, and they still bloody won the World Cup.
And they still won the World Cup.
Yeah.
And LeBach did. He gave LeBach a chance.
I will say as well, LeBach is... I'd have him on the field still. He's class with the ball in hand, right? He just wasn't the best place kicker in that tournament. But holy shit, can he run around people?
He can play. Yeah,
he can play rugby, can't he?
He's at 10 stuff. He's better. He's better than Andre Pollard in my eyes. Yeah, he's better than Andre Pollard.
He's got the physicality of Pollard, but he's also a bit X Factor, breaks the line a lot, isn't he?
He's got an X Factor that Pollard doesn't have. Pollard is has one of those standard 10s, more of those old school 10s.
Yeah.
And he can kick.
Yeah, he can.
If LeBach could kick his points from wherever he could, wherever he is on the field, I don't think Andre Pollard never would have saw the field.
No, you're right. You're right.
So, but Sia Kolisi going back to the Shark. That's Sia Kolisi.
Yeah.
Next on the news, I want to talk about ESPN drama.
Uh-oh. What does ESPN stand for?
I don't know.
Is that an awkward
Entertainment,
question?
sports,
something.
So
just
network.
for context, though, it is an American...
Yes.
Okay.
ESPN is owned by Disney, I think.
Interesting.
Which used to be owned by Fox, maybe?
So it's like some American media conglomerate sports network.
So they did top 100 athletes of the 21st century.
Right.
Not one rugby player was mentioned. Dum, dum, dum.
Clutching my pearls over here. Color me surprised. What do you think about that?
I think that's kind of evident on how rugby is just not on the radar in the United States.
I'm so glad you said that and didn't have a pop at how a rugby player deserves to be on there, because you have to take these things in context, don't you? Because if I was a big fan of handball, which is very popular in Europe, then why is there no handball player here? Fuck what?
What's no handball player?
You know what I mean? It's like,
you don't have one water polo?
Yeah, exactly. Or that Spanish game where they've got that weird hook-shaped glove stick thing? It's like,
they start throwing it.
Where is my
Where the hell is that?
Glove? I don't know. I'm going to do it.
They had cricket on there.
You can't ignore cricket, even if you're an American, because cricket is fucking massive. India's a big bloody country.
Yep.
So you can't ignore cricket, even if you're an American. So that doesn't surprise me. But to ignore rugby, yeah, you're onto something that I would like to talk about, which is where does rugby sit in global perceptions of famous world ranking sports? And I think we're on the radar for most people in most places, but we're really not as big as we think we are.
I think that has to do with because if people are fans of rugby, they'll say, like people that are fans of rugby know that rugby is an amazing sport.
Yeah.
And it's up there with entertainment value.
Yeah.
It's up there with every other upper echelon
and of
sport.
course we're biased, but I think it's much more entertaining than a lot of other sports that I like,
Yeah. I put rugby, I grew up watching American football. As soon as I started watching rugby, I can't even watch football anymore. And I grew up watching it. I would go to the games. I'd watch on TV, any kind of Super Bowl, the Grey Cup, those are big days. I cannot sit and watch a football game anymore because of the start, stop, the commercials. Rugby just has everything I've ever wanted in a sport. Just compiled into one package.
I feel similarly about football, like soccer. I grew up with it. It's part of Welsh, British, whatever culture. And the more I got into rugby as a teenager, the less I could watch and even support a football team. I actually love playing football. Like I still do love playing it. But to watch it, and I'm watching a 90-minute game, and I get 1, maybe 2 goals. And even the worst game of rugby for me is more entertaining than the best football game.
My getting back to my point, what I was trying to get at was my thing that I see when I see rugby and how popular its popularity in various countries is how long rugby took to get its shit together. It took rugby a long time. They became professional in 1994.
I still don't think it's got its shit together.
And when you watch and it took a long time for the product that we see today to become the product that we see today. Like they're almost a new sport.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Everything is so established, and they're kind of like trying to shoulder in. They're like, when Trump was at the G8 summit and he's trying to like shoulder it up to the front
against the world.
Like that's rugby. Like, excuse me, like let me through here. I want to be up front. Like that's exactly what's happening. Like they took because you watch the games from like the 90s, the 80s, like anything like past previous of 2000. The game is a fucking disaster. It's a mess.
It is.
And when you look at it, there's guys everywhere. They're dressed funny. And
it's just a brawl, isn't it? In the mud.
Especially when I'm watching I watch American sports and I'm watching this and I'm like, what the? It looks like a mess. Yeah. Right. It just looks like a mess, and it's just like, what is going on here? Yeah. Right?
But we liked that. We liked that in the 70s. You got to remember as well, there was a lot of gatekeeping that went on in rugby. It literally, as much as we shit on League's history demonstrates to you the flaws of rugby union, because rugby union was a literal old boys private school club thing, and League wanted to sort of change a few things and do the things their own. And union was like, no, you're not allowed to do that, right? And they literally gatekept their own sport to the point where they excluded people. And that's why in many countries it is still basically like a private school rich kid sport, and that is changing.
That held rugby still has a lot of old boy club, like running the show. When and they don't have they're not progressive enough to understand how to grow a sport.
And there's circles of people, particularly in those days and still today, who don't want to grow the sport, right? They want to keep it like that. They're like hobbits in the Shire, like just fuck off and mind your business. We're having fun here, leave us the fuck alone, And that exists still in rugby. In Wales, because it was a working man's game, that's why it was able to grow throughout the country, right? Like, because we didn't gatekeep it. It was anyone plays it.
Because when I watched, what's that sport where, I don't know where there's a country, there's a ball and a bunch of guys in a circle arena, and then they start fist fighting each other with the ball.
It's in Italy, isn't it? I can't remember what it's called, but the whole town just fights over a tennis ball. Yeah. And just has a massive scrap.
And when you watch old games of rugby, that's what I would contribute to. It'd be like one of those things. And that's like the fucking running of the bulls of sports. Like, it's just like this random shit that's happening when I watch old games. And I could see how, like, especially North Americans, look at this and be like, this looks like that.
Yeah.
This looks like, it looks messy. It looks like where everyone's fist fighting
It's
in
a
an
brawl.
arena
Yeah.
for a ball.
And there was so in Wales, 100 years ago, that's what would happen. Literally, they'd get a ball, and the whole town, one team has to get the ball to this place in the town, the other team has to get the ball to this place in the town, and it's literally a brawl, right? And that is the roots of rugby, as much as like it was codified in the rugby school. Codification saved it from just a whole town of people having a scrap and having the best time of their lives. But these days you can't sell that, can you?
No.
That's the difference.
So now you have this like rugby's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
A lot more professionally presented.
Yeah.
So now it's a product that can be sold.
Yeah.
But for ESPN to like not name an athlete just proves how far behind rugby is.
Yeah, but here's the thing, we're always trying to change the rules, and we're always talking about how messy the breakdown and stuff is. That is a hangover from the fact that this game used to just be literally a brawl, right?
Yeah.
You can't fucking tidy that up. There has to always be an element of this is a hot mess, right?
It's also not a very easy sport to get into.
No, for the same reasons, right? Because it's, I watch it with my mother-in-law and she's having a great time, but someone will blow the whistle and she'd be like, why did that happen? And I'll be like, I've got a fucking clue, And I know quite a lot about rugby. Like,
it took me a long time when I started watching rugby. It took me a long time to like actually figure out the game.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
I would be 5 years in watching this sport,
Yeah.
and I still didn't know all the rules,
Yeah.
all the nuances, and I still don't. There's still a lot of things that will go over my head.
And it bloody changes every 6 months. And the crazy thing is if you're sat there watching it, if you're watching football, soccer, there's only one phase of play, kicking the ball around, hopefully into the net, right? In rugby, there are so many different elements and phases of play. Like, when a maul starts, when a ruck is formed, when we're lining up to take a kick, when a scrum is happening, we're in a lineup. There's so many different phases of play where different rules apply. I don't think there's another sport like that in the world. And here's the thing. When we talk about football being like the people's game, because all you need is a ball, you only need a ball for rugby as well. Mm-hmm. But because you need a fucking college degree to know the rules of it, you can't have it as a grassroots level sport everywhere.
If you take a really good example of this is here. So when a new person comes to the rugby club, has never played rugby, it takes a while for them to get into it.
That's why we put them on the wing.
Just to figure out what is going on.
Yeah.
Right? So like if I was coaching soccer, I could just throw a ball on the grass.
Yeah.
You guys have to kick that ball this way. You guys got to kick this ball over that way.
It's almost instinctive, isn't it?
I know it's more complicated than that, but the basis of it is there.
Yeah.
Just got to kick it that way.
Yeah.
And get it into that net.
That's it.
Right? And that's it.
Yeah.
In rugby, there's just a fucking no. You got to ruck into this.
Yeah.
No, this is a line out. No, there's so many elements.
It's a hard sell, isn't it?
You have to be back behind the guy. You can't just be wherever you want.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things. It took because I took 30 kids this year in a high school that didn't even know what rugby was.
Yeah.
And I had 3 or 4 weeks to get them ready to play their first game of rugby.
Yeah.
And it was a task.
Yeah, of course it is.
So
and you were only with them once a week, weren't you?
I think there's a lot of things like just saying this though. I think there's a lot of good things happening, especially in North America, because if you want the sport breaking into the United States is going to be big for rugby. Yeah, because I think it's growing. It's because it's evidently growing in Europe. It's one of the fastest growing sports in Europe.
Is that true?
Yeah. Attendance up, viewership's up all over the place. Even though people are saying that the game's dying, it's up everywhere. It's even up in Super Rugby, where they complain about it the most.
Right.
Where they think that like in New Zealand, the viewership's actually up there too.
I'm worried though, because as much as that all sounds good, I know for a fact that there's evidence to the contrary as well. Yeah, there are the bigger teams who are really successful are bringing in bigger crowds, but the teams at the bottom end of those leagues are not just getting less people, they're dying. Look at the English Premiership. This was one of my favorite ever years to watch the Gallagher Premiership. It was so competitive, but it was competitive because they lost 3 teams. They lost 3 professional rugby teams in the last couple of years.
I also don't think you can put a club anywhere and for it to survive.
No, you're not automatically entitled to a successful sporting team, are you? You're not entitled to it, which is, we've got to accept that. But
some places don't have the fan base for the team.
No. No, they don't.
So they have to realize that, like, yeah, some teams are going to fail, some teams aren't. A good example is the Rebels.
And that's sad because it wasn't always the case, Like, I don't think Melbourne was always just a league place or an AFL place. There was a time where, and it was probably because of private schools and stuff, but there was a time where rugby union was just as popular there. And the game has genuinely died in Australia. It's not dead, but in certain places in Australia, it has died or it's dying, right? You have to accept that, yeah, it's true. But it's difficult for me to take it without a pinch of salt when people say the game is growing everything's fucking rosy. Like, it's not, though. In all the places. I think rugby will be okay, but there's going to be some pruning of the bushes going on, right?
Yeah, when you look at this ESPN snub of rugby players.
Yeah, I'm glad you got back to that, by the way, because we were tangenting there.
It's rugby has to take a look at that as not that as a snub.
Yeah,
as like a warning sign.
It is a comment on the popularity of the game.
Why are players not on that list?
Yeah,
is what you should be asking, and it's not because these players don't deserve it to be on that list. It's because rugby is just not visible enough.
No,
it's not visible enough to people like that work at ESPN.
Yeah.
Like, you need to, like, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a good thing, kind of an eye opener.
Yeah.
Hopefully the people that need to see it.
Yeah. What do they do about that in North America? Because I think the MLR is right now as good as it can be, and it'll get better.
Yep.
And I think they've got some really good things in the pipeline in the US. And I think the Olympic Sevens for the USA women did a lot for the game there. So I think everything that's been done well this year, I mean, the US and Canadian teams could do better. But other than that, I think they're doing everything they can. Yeah,
I think they're going to have the Ireland play All Blacks in Chicago again.
Yeah.
That'll be big.
Yeah.
The World Cup.
But are you just catering to the people who are already going to go to that, though? I think it needs to be more American teams doing things. Because, yeah, it's a good showcase, USA, Ireland, but they've done that before. And that was years ago. That was nearly 10 years ago that happened. And it was good. But you need to have the Americans doing American things with rugby,
Yeah, that's... I agree with you.
Because that Fiji All Blacks game, we talked about that, didn't we? That didn't do anything for the game.
Because if Americans, they love like USA.
Yeah, they want to.
They want to cheer that.
Yeah, and as much as fun to take the piss out of that,
they probably still will at Ireland, New Zealand.
But I'm not going to take the piss out of Americans for cheering for their own team in their own country.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do that. Yeah, that's awesome.
They in the United States. I think the MLR it's growing every year.
Yeah.
The product keeps getting better.
It does actually.
Give it some time, because we're not seeing the dividends in the national team yet. I still think it just needs more time.
Okay, which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which we can dip back into the SPN thing, so I might have another thing to say about it, but I just wrote Japan down, right? And you were like, what do you want to talk about Japan? I was just like, I just want to talk about Japan. Okay, because Japan, if you compare Japan to the US in terms of rugby, the Japanese league is obviously more financially and, it's just more successful, isn't it? A lot more people are attending. There's a lot more money involved. All you need to do is look at who's on those team sheets to know that. And you could say, you just said America just needs more time. Japan has had a lot of time in the limelight now. They've had the World Cup. They've got a very successful domestic league with a lot of fucking money in it. Like, what are they doing?
I think
Is it just Eddie Jones?
I was just going to say that. Because, when they got that whooping from
England. Yeah.
Didn't they beat the Maori All Blacks this year?
I hope so, because I'm going to sound like a bit of a tit if they did.
I think so.
I think they did actually, didn't they? They did actually. I think you're right.
Eddie Jones is doing some Eddie Jones shit with Japan right now. So you're not seeing the best of the best of what's available in Japan.
Yeah.
Like he started a kid that's never played professional rugby against England at fullback.
Japan did beat the Maori All Blacks in July as well. You're right. Yeah.
So, like, I think right now, like, you're not really, like, people are like, what's going on there? Why they have all the best players. They have some of the best players in the world playing there. Like, these Japanese players are playing against them. Like, there should be a higher standard.
They're having a weird third album, aren't they? They're doing an experimental rock album.
They are. They're being very experimental. I think Eddie Jones is trying to build. I think he's just thinking about the next World Cup. Yeah. And he's trying to find that core. He's trying to find that young talent that's going to grow into that position. Now, if it's going to work or not, like you can argue back and forth.
But it would be on Eddie Jones, not on the state of Japanese rugby.
Yes,
Right.
I wouldn't say that the national team right now is the full representation of how talented the Japanese are.
Fair enough.
There's also like some like random things. Like they're a huge rugby market.
Yeah.
I was just reading now that they're like a lot of teams, like they used to have the employees like fill the stadiums.
Yeah, but
now they're not doing that anymore.
No.
And,
these are people who want to watch rugby.
There's people that want to watch rugby there.
Yeah, and thousands of them.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
Like the Sunwolves would pack out their stadium every game, and they would get trashed every game, and the fans would just keep showing up.
Yeah.
What was I going to say here? I lost my point here. There's just some missed opportunities. Like, why isn't Japan in the rugby championship? Like, it makes the most sense.
It does. I think it's because, speculating here, so, if you're in Japan and you like baseball, they're owned by or sponsored by massive companies, right? Like the SoftBank Hawks in Fukuoka. SoftBank is like this absolutely massive $1 billion cell phone company, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same in rugby, right? They are like, if I would love that in Wales, if Cardiff got bought by fucking Sony or something, we'd never lose ever again. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't. You'd have billions of, and there's that. It's an open market that could happen. We just don't have those kind of companies. Japan is the home of dodgy electronics, right? They've got fucking billions upon billions of these massive companies, and they've, these companies don't just sponsor these teams; they own these fucking teams, right? So they put a lot of money into it, and it is successful. But when you talk about like where are Japan on the national stage and why aren't they marketing themselves better, I think they're doing fine. And it would be very Japanese to be like, this is going well for us. Everyone else, fuck off, mind your business.
I just think it's such a missed opportunity
to not have them in the rugby champion. I agree,
especially their market,
yeah,
their fan base,
yeah.
Just not having them in there.
Yeah, I know I keep going on about travel as well, but from Japan to Argentina, that's about as long as flight as you can fucking take. That is literally the other side of the world.
Fucking Brisbane to fucking South Africa.
Oh, I know, but
they've been doing that for years.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons South Africa left, isn't it? Because they just were pissed off at the time difference. So the rugby championship is slightly different, but and I don't think that's the only reason. But I also just think Japan are a bit isolationist, and they're working on their own thing, and it's going fine.
Do you think it's more on the Japan side than it is on the Zanzibar side?
It's hard to say. I think this rugby championship will be a good indication of that. Like if it's successful, if there's a lot of people watching, if they fill out stadiums, I don't think they're that bothered. They've got a good product. Why fuck around with it?
I just think, like, as a fan,
yeah,
it's just it boggles my mind.
But they play back and forth fixtures as well, don't they? Six Nations is, you play every team once.
Argentina goes to South Africa. South Africa goes to Argentina.
Right, it's
back and forth. They got it done. They have the tournament set up properly.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Maybe that's why they're happy with it as it is, right? Every team plays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. They actually play more games than the Six Nations teams do in the Rugby Championship, despite there being less teams, right? So maybe they're just like, that's enough fucking rugby. But
they could go to. They don't have to have 2 games each. Right, because remember, this used to be the Tri-Nations before Argentina.
Yeah.
Right? So playing twice, and now there's only 4 teams, so they play twice to make up the games.
Yeah.
If they added Fiji and Japan in there, they can just play.
They do a Six Nation style.
They can just do a Six Nation style and just play each other once.
And this is what we're talking about in terms of, like, go back to that ESPN thing about rugby marketing itself and being a bit of a free-for-all and still being in the primordial super professionalism. Even in a prestigious established championship like the Rugby Championship, they're still figuring it out, right? Inviting Argentina very recently is indicative of that, and it's a good addition. Mm-hmm. We only have Italy in the Six Nations for, in sporting history, relatively short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
I think what's happening is we're still figuring out our best formulas, and doing that kind of thing is fucking risky, because if it backfires, that's a lot of wasted money, right? And for Japan, I don't want the Brighton Miracle to be like their high tide mark, because obviously they've got potential and money there. But you have to play around with these things, and we're not there yet, right? So that's what we're always speculating about. Oh, if you did X, Y, and Z, if you invite Georgia to the Six Nations, like, we're still figuring out fucking our biggest money-making tournaments here. The NFL has got it. They're not changing their fucking formula.
Yeah. Besides, like even if you took the Springboks and Argentina out of the rugby championship, like it could be New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Fiji, and then I think Samoa and Tonga, like those can join as one team.
Yeah,
because they're just such small countries.
Or this is a really good time to actually try a relegation system because they are not locked in like the Six Nations are, right? Let's say you had Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, Japan do their own rugby championship or the rugby bowl or whatever the fuck you want to call it. The winner,
which they kind of do already.
And the winner goes up and the loser comes down. And, I could see Argentina switching out for a Fiji and it still being a competitive tournament in both cases, right? I could see that, or even Japan, and that encourages Tonga and Samoa to get better and exposes them to higher level rugby more frequently. That would be cool.
Having like Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, Japan in there, also makes games. There's a lot more watchable games.
Yeah,
because there was years when whoever Argentina played, I just wouldn't watch.
Yeah,
now
Italy.
That's different.
Yeah,
but you have a lot of like people beating, like other teams can potentially beat other teams.
Yeah.
New Zealand's not invincible anymore. So like now you have to watch the Argentina games versus New Zealand because you don't know if they're going to like pull up an upset now.
Yeah.
Because they can do it. They've done it twice now.
Yeah.
In the last few years. I don't know. Japan's like a weird. It is a weird how they do everything is just different.
It is different, and I would say the same about the US, to be honest. And I would say that difference is actually just money, right? They're just motivated by money in a different way. They're less concerned about the growth of the game. They're more concerned about making it financially viable in their own country first, which I understand. And I'm not criticizing it, right?
Having the USA in the rugby championship would even be something.
Here's the thing, though. We get all excited about this kind of stuff, but eventually you have to think about how many games of rugby is a team playing every year, right? You have to have, and that's why you have to have a tiered system.
Yeah.
You have to have a tiered system at some point because otherwise South Africa, all these countries are lining up to play them. Eventually they have to go, we've got other fucking things to worry about.
That's why I think the Springboks, in the situation they're in now, are in a bad spot because they basically, the top players play all year round.
They do.
Like, I don't know when they take breaks. They're literally going from rugby to rugby to rugby to rugby.
Yeah.
And high quality, like all the way through.
And maybe that's why New Zealand have an advantage.
They're in a bad spot.
They are their depth is good, but I think about New Zealand's Super Rugby season, and because they play less games, I do think maybe them being rested for internationals helps them. Whereas South Africa and Ireland as well, like the Irish props look knackered, right? And a lot of the South Africans look kind of tired as well, and that
has to do with the lack of depth that the Irish have.
It does have to do with that for sure.
They have a lack of depth. Like when you look at the behind the top four, like they really have they really right now have like kind of like a top two, and then behind that, like it's not like they have guys, but they haven't like put their hand up. Like the three best props in the world are Porter, Finley Bealham, and Furlong, Porter, and Bealham. They're the three best props. Like behind Porter, you got Keane Healy, who they have to like he's a senior citizen. Like he's like, I think he's almost 40.
Props are like red wine, though. They just get better.
But that's
and better
that's the best you get right after that.
Yeah.
And then after that, like I don't know, Ollie Jaeger. I don't see like Ollie Jaeger. Like I don't know, like he's a good player.
But you don't know though, do you? Because he hasn't played.
Yeah, because I don't. Andy Farrell doesn't really like.
He hasn't got room for him.
Yeah, he doesn't. He didn't even play him in the Springbok tour. I think he played in the first game, but he didn't play in the second game. I can't remember.
And this is the case for South Africa and Scotland and France's fun time tours, because they take it like a developmental tour, and you almost kind of think like maybe everyone should do that. As much as it was fun having this like who's the best team in the world billing and all this drama about it, and which we obviously exacerbated massively for a laugh, like it was still, you've got to feel for these guys who are going into another biggest game of their life when they should be on holiday, and they should be playing guys like Ollie Jaeger who need some time in the Irish prop seat, right? It's
just that the games that they have are so high. The games that that Ireland are playing, they're just high stakes.
But they are high stakes.
They're high stake games.
They literally chose to play South Africa, right? That was an agreement between the two countries,
and they want that. They're going for these high stake games.
Yeah,
and they need the best of the best out there.
They do, but
you're not gonna trial players unless you have to when you're playing in a tour in South Africa that you want to win.
But
No
France,
coach is going to.
France are there.
But they don't care. That's the thing. They don't care.
But let's see what happens in
Like
2 or 3 years' time. Then.
Their best player, like the best rugby player in the world, has never won a test match outside of Europe. So like they don't care. They have a different value system. They don't care if they're gonna go to New Zealand. They'll fucking send some like cannon fodder. Like they'll send the Canaries in there into the tunnel.
I guess what I'm saying is if you use the summer as downtime, developmental fun time, does it pay dividends in games which really matter? Because as we know, Ireland don't win games which really matter. And that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing it hasn't paid. Like they're winning all these like crazy games outside the World Cup.
Yeah.
Even in the World Cup, they win some crazy games too. But when it came to what they really needed to win,
they don't.
They don't win.
Yeah, and neither do France, but South Africa do.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's that's the argument, isn't it? Do you take the time between World Cups to actually develop players, which Ireland aren't so good at doing, or do you have to play every game like it's your final because you need to have that high level ambition
don't think
all
they
the
have,
time?
Yeah, they just don't have the depth to. They want to stay at the top.
Yeah,
and they don't have the depth to do. If they want to stay at the top, they don't have the depth to experiment like that.
Because they're trying to stay in an arm wrestle against South Africa and New Zealand. That's like having an arm wrestle against 2 guys with 2 arms.
Yeah, because they have because the
that's
problem
what I'm saying.
is
Their depth
they
is
don't
much
understand.
bigger.
It's like they have 100 RG Simons.
Yeah,
waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
like they're just sitting there in the dark.
Yeah.
Their eyes glowing red, and then like Razzie goes into
the cellar.
Yeah, and he
picks out
grabs one
another
out.
7-foot monster.
Yeah,
from his laboratory.
Ireland doesn't have that. So.
No. But that's what I'm saying. You've got to pick a lane, right? You've got to pick, and they've obviously picked a lane. They've picked the lane.
They are small minnow, and they're punching like above their weight from the player pool that they have.
They've got a very efficient system compared to other countries, right? In terms of development.
They do, and everything has to be perfect for them because they lose a player here or there, the quality drops quite a bit. So
speaking of that, do you want to talk about Joey Carberry and his spicy phrases?
Yeah, we can talk about Joey Carberry.
Yeah.
He's bitter.
He's bitter, isn't he?
Thought he wasn't respected enough.
Yeah. What did he specifically say? So we're not saying slanderous shit.
I think he said something about like how he was better,
dramatic way.
He thinks
he was better than he thought he was treated. Something like that, wasn't it?
That was exactly what he said.
Okay. And he's since moved to France after a shorter time with Leinster, but a longer time with Munster. I wasn't that sympathetic, to be honest, because I thought he had his chances at 10 when he's playing basically the best 10. He's playing with and under the best 10 Ireland have ever produced in Johnny Sexton. And when he had his chances, bad luck, but he was injured for a lot of those times.
Yeah. He hit. I don't understand. Like he's probably put in a lot of work to maintain that professional spot.
Yeah.
And he's been overlooked.
Yeah.
By Crowley.
Yeah.
That probably was a nail in the coffin for him.
I think so. Yeah.
Like in Ireland, like when he's playing for Ireland, being behind Johnny Sexton, like that's one thing. But in his home, in his own club, being overlooked, and being played, but he was just always injured, and he's just not. I think he's a good rugby player. He's a good footballer.
Yeah.
I just don't. He lacks a physicality in this. He gets injured all the time.
He was very similar to Sexton in a lot of ways, but Sexton was a hard bastard. You know, people would put on monster hits on him and he would just get up. And yeah, don't get me wrong, he'd have to re-glue his leg on in the week between the games. But like Carberry just, like you said, didn't have, and it's nothing he's done. It's just, he was just more injury prone, wasn't he?
He's also
hits in the same way.
What he lacked, when you compare him to Sexton, because he could kick. I would even say that Joey Carberry is a better playmaker than Johnny Sexton.
Okay.
The thing that he lacked was his presence on the field. Like Johnny Sexton is like a commander on the field.
Oh yeah, he's an angry yelling.
He's a leader on the field, and Joey Carberry is not that.
He's not, is he? And let's not forget though, Joey Carberry beat the All Blacks in Chicago as a substitute, but like he's not without Irish accolades, you know. But also it did sound a bit bitter because you look at Ireland's 10 options now, and as you know, I'm a big Prendergast fan and a big Kieran Frawley fan, and less of a fan of the Burns in Leinster. And even in that conversation with those 4 10s, they still have Jack Crowley, who is their regular starting 10, who I haven't even mentioned, right? There's a lot of depth and talent at 10. Why would you pick the old guy who's injury prone over the young guys who are kicking ass, you know?
I'm surprised he went to France. Ulster,
it feels like giving up,
kind of
doesn't it?
missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, that's true. They could have done with a Joey Carberry, couldn't they?
They could have done with a Joey Carberry. They
Yeah.
could have taken Joey Carberry into their wings.
Yeah, yeah.
He would have been better suited there to stay in the Irish system.
Yeah.
Probably would have been good for him. I don't know how he's going to do in France. France is attritional.
Well, we talked about it,
yeah,
didn't
like
we?
we said about France. I don't know if he's going to do any better.
He's going to get chewed up and spat out, just like everyone else who goes
and they're
there.
going to be expecting top quality from him. I'm surprised they actually signed him somewhere because of how injury prone he is, and they do not like players that don't play.
Yeah.
And so I'm surprised he's in for. Hopefully he does good.
Yeah, I don't I'm not pissed off at him or anything. I just thought it was a bit of a spicy thing to say, really, considering everything he's done and where he's at and the decisions he's made. This is all in his hands right now, isn't it? Could have chose to stay in Ireland and given it a crack, albeit against some hot competition.
He's only 28 years old.
He is only 28 years old, but regardless of age, the guys who are ahead of him in the pecking order now are...
One guy doesn't even play 10.
Exactly. But he can. Oh, can he? You know? And I look at Warren Gatland taking over at Wales. Don't worry, I will relate it to what we're talking about. Aaron Wainwright has been one of our best players in the last few games for Wales, right? Mm-hmm. Wayne Pivac didn't bloody look at him twice, right? And then as soon as Gatland comes back in, he brings Aaron Wainwright in from a losing Dragons team, and he's immediately incredible at international level. All it takes is a changing coach, and Carberry could be back into an Ireland team, you know? Mm-hmm. So to leave is very much saying, I'm done, you know? Especially in Ireland, where if you're not playing in Ireland, good luck fucking getting in the Irish team, because I can't think of anyone outside of... I can't actually think of anyone outside of Ireland who's Irish. There's not many of them, is there?
I can't think of... I know there's players playing.
Yeah, right, but no one of significance who's in contention, right?
All the top guys are still in Ireland.
Yeah, if you want to play for Ireland, you better be probably playing for Leinster, actually, but, or playing really well for Munster.
Yeah, I thought a move to Ulster probably would have made more sense.
Does make sense.
But I think he's kind of given up on the Irish dream.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it seems like he's not in he doesn't see himself. I think maybe he knows some things that we don't know.
Maybe
like Andy Farrell's just not looking.
He's probably
at
had a conversation with him and said,
"Yeah, you have these problems." Cause I guarantee they had a conversation, and Andy Farrell was like, "Hey, these are the things I want you to work on.
Yeah,
you're just not there yet.
I want you to work on making sure Jack Crowley gets injured."
And then that's up to Joey Carberry to take. He might say, "No, I'm already there. You're just not picking me because you don't like me."
Oh yeah,
it could be stuff like that.
Could be.
Yeah, so it's up to Joey Carberry, really.
That's what I'm saying. If this is his decision, isn't it? Anyway, we've made a mountain out of a molehill, which I quite liked.
Joe Schmidt's comments.
Let's make another even bigger mountain out of an even smaller molehill.
Springboks are just lucky. That's why they win.
That's why they win. And these rule changes mean they're never going to win a game of rugby ever again.
So what did Joe Schmidt say?
I'm going to butcher it with some paraphrasing, but essentially Joe Schmidt, he mentioned James Lowe's disallowed try in the first Ireland Springboks test match this summer and used it as a reference point to say that South Africa do get the rub of the green a lot. And then he's talking about rule changes coming in where they're going to have 30 seconds to get to the scrum, 30 seconds to get to the line out. I think the implication was that South Africa dictate how a game of rugby is played. And that's part of their style, right? They have these sort of big dick moves where they will call for a scrum from a mark and they will force you to walk over to them across the field while they're already waiting their set for the scrum. They're just they play mind games with you even when the clock is not on, right? That every single thing they do is geared towards, you're playing rugby against us. Mm-hmm. We're dictating how this game goes. And Joe Schmidt is commenting on the fact that these new law trials are going to affect their ability to do that. I think he's got a point, but I do think it's a bit weird to say that they get the rub of the green. I think South Africa just know what they're doing. Because I watch every single... We didn't not talk about the referee in any one of these summer tests between any one of the big teams that played this summer, right? There were controversial refereeing decisions in basically every game, and I think they went for both teams.
I think the least refereeing... there was some controversy with... I thought in the Australia and Wales series, and in the New Zealand England,
we talked about the New Zealand England one particularly, didn't we?
Rough reffing.
There was
in those series, and that James Lowe call. It was when I was watching it live, and that try was disallowed. I thought it was a shitty call, but it wasn't like there was so much else wrong in the game for Ireland at that point that it wasn't a make or break.
I thought the better team won in both of those games. I thought Ireland deserved the win in the second game. I thought South Africa deserved the win in the first game. There were referee calls that went either way. And to say that South Africa got lucky, they're back-to-back world champions, you know? That's not luck, is it? You know?
Yeah, it was just when you have two teams like Ireland and South Africa that are just so good.
Yeah.
Things like that are going to be the make and break of the games. But I don't think that's the Box's fault or Ireland's fault.
No.
You know, they're just playing the game. They're just two really good teams. You watched a series where both those teams, both those games, either team could have won.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's kind of an odd comment.
It was weird, but
I think he's kind of playing a little bit of a head game.
Of course he is. Yeah, he's playing mind games for the Rugby Championship, right? And he's trying to get into referees' heads. But in terms of the law trials, which is taking 30 seconds to get to the scrum and taking 30 seconds to get to the line out, is that a good idea? Is that going to speed things up like people want? What do you think?
I don't know. Like, I didn't find a problem with it before.
No, me too.
So it's kind of like when the team's winning and they're taking their time to get to the line out in the scrum, like that's part of the game in my eyes.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's part of the fuckery, and I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. I just 30 seconds to get to the scrum.
Yeah.
Was it 30 seconds to set up? I
don't know exactly. And I imagine
like these motherfuckers are like always bitching about safety and shit. And now you got this the scrum, which is pretty much the most dangerous part. Like a car crash, pretty much. The amount of force going into it, and you're just gonna like rush them into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like a bit dodgy, doesn't it? And I think about sevens.
Like, why don't you just go back to the way when they would just like grab each other and just throw each other back in?
And they're just doing uppercuts.
Yeah.
And then even if someone gets punched directly in the head, ref comes over and just goes, calm it down, boys.
Yeah, like scrum, and they just like all grab each other and they bend over and run into each other.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't have that because it's dangerous. Well, it's like, well, you're rushing these guys in, these like super duper, like the strength in these scrums versus like if any national pack scrum to guys from like the 90s or 80s, they would fucking like kill them.
Yeah.
Because the amount of strength and power behind these guys now and the science behind them, right? So now you got this like very like physical, dangerous set play, and these guys got to set up right so it's like not dangerous, and you're gonna rush them into it. It's just,
I think it opens the door for some tomfoolery as well, because like if your mum calls you down for dinner and you're with your siblings and it's like, if you don't get to table first, no one's getting pudding, and like you'll trip one kid up to like fucking get down there quicker. All of a sudden it's like you're creating an avenue where maybe one team gets there super early because they've called for a scrum, they set up really quickly, and then they start teasing the other team, hi, better get here quick. They rush there, they're all sweaty, and then the ref gets them into a scrum really quickly before they're ready, and the other team obliterate them. That sounds dangerous to me, and it opens an avenue for exploitation rather than speeding the game up. Do you know what I mean?
It opens up for some dodgy calls.
It does.
Some game-breaking dodgy calls are going to come from this because they're all rushing.
I can already see in my head, someone's rushing to get to the scrum, and someone pushes them or trips them off camera, and it creates this insane controversy, and the referee doesn't see it, and he's like, well, you didn't get to the scrum in time, so I'm giving you penalty. That results in a winning try. Can already see it happening.
And there's going to be a lot more collapsed scrums.
Of course there is.
Like, it's not fixing the problem. It's
exacerbating.
When you actually break it down, it's probably going to make it worse.
Of course it is. And isn't that what we're talking about? Less collapsed scrums, less scrum resets.
You're going to have more controversial calls.
Yeah.
And you're going to have lots more collapsed scrums because guys are just trying to get into this scrum. They're trying to,
and imagine you get there, and then the ref does that thing where he's like, "Okay, boys, time off. We're just going to talk." And he's like, "You just kidding me? Time off? I just rushed to get here to speed the game up. Don't tell me fucking time off. Let's have a fucking scrum." You can already see these pissed off props going, "I didn't run here for you to tell me how to make a scrum happen, right?" Like,
yeah.
So yeah.
I think about the line out, like rushing into the line out though.
Yeah.
I think that'll be I think that's a little bit different.
I actually think I like that idea
because now they're going to be scrambling to set up, and it's going to be.
That's what you want in a line out, isn't it?
Yeah. The ball can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you want that. You want that because sometimes the lineouts are just so good. There's no
competing against it. And you don't compete against the maul setups, do you? But if I have to rush to defend a maul in my own try zone, like that makes it a bit more exciting, doesn't it? So I don't hate that.
So I like that. I like that idea too. But yeah, the scrum thing.
Don't rush the scrums.
Don't rush the scrums.
No. I mean, I do think we should be a bit more harsh on like people just taking the piss, taking their time to get there. But putting a shot clock on it isn't the way to do it, I don't think. There's got to be a better way of getting people get accountable for just, but getting to the scrum in time.
There's going to be a fucking shot clock for everything in the
I
next
know.
10 years for rugby. There's be shot clocks.
I know.
There's clocks going all over the
It's
place.
just going to be like one long beep test this whole game, isn't it?
You'll see the score on the top left corner of the
Yeah.
of the fucking screen, and then there's a bunch of fucking clocks going, and you don't even know what any of them
a bunch
are.
of little minor timers. But the thing is that it wasn't well enforced, where they had 5 seconds to use it from the back of a ruck, right? They said last year, we're going to really enforce this 5-second rule, and everyone's like, oh, they're going to do it. And like, we're going to do it. We're going to enforce this rule. Within a month, the refs have been like, oh, it's boring though. Can't be fucked. And no one listens to me anyway. Like, if you're gonna do this, there has to be consequences. If I'm late to the scrum, what are the consequences? Penalty against me? Imagine it's a scrum on my 5 meter line, and they opted for the scrum as a penalty. It's like, what? Are they get another penalty because I'm late to the scrum?
And you're not taking into account how like attritional rugby is.
Yeah.
Like these guys are playing a hard game.
Yeah.
Like they gotta let them get to the scrum.
Yeah. They're
Like,
tired. They're big
Fuck.
boys.
Like
They're chafing down
these
there.
fans need to fall in love with the scrum again.
Yeah, I love
Like
scrums.
the fucking like this scrum. There's too much scrum controversy, and it's like
Yeah. You know what they would do in the US? They would put commercials in the time people are walking to the scrums. They would lean into it. They'd
Yeah.
go, take your fucking time.
oh they want
We're
it.
going to sell you some
They've
Coca-Cola.
added, the MLR's added more breaks
Of course they have.
into the game so
Yeah.
they can throw commercials
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
So yes, you would see commercials just like being thrown in everywhere.
Yeah.
If it was like if America was running the show,
Yeah.
every time you wouldn't see these downtimes because it would just be.
They'd be like, take your downtime. Have a minute because we're going to sell you some shit. We've got some breakfast cereal.
Maybe that's why I'm not very controversial on like I don't see the scrum as very controversial because I'm used to like sports that like
Yeah.
start and stop.
You used to taking
And-
a piss between plays, aren't you?
And then like fucking getting thrown commercials at me left, right, and center. Whenever the players just stop playing, bam, there's a commercial.
Yeah.
So yeah, like they can. There's a missed opportunity there. Like just throw a commercial in there.
If I had
Throw a commercial.
£1 for every time I've missed a Wales try because I was taking a piss, I'd probably have £9, which seems like a lot to me. Do you know what I mean? So take your time. Give me more piss breaks. Actually, no, I'm falling into the gap now. This is like fucking quicksand here. It's going to become the NFL and I'm encouraging it. No, fuck that. But yeah, there's a middle ground, isn't there? There's a middle ground.
There is somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the rugby championship real quick here.
All right. Little
Let's
preview.
let me bring up these games here. So Friday for us, Australia takes on South Africa. Ooh.
I've already said what I think about this. I think Australia are going to get fucking creamed. I got to stick to my guns now.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I said it last week, so. What do you think?
I don't know about this one actually. I like
You think South Africa are going to lose against Australia?
logically, South Africa should win this.
Yeah, obviously.
But I feel like Australia, like they just for some reason they have
Bobby Valentine.
They have
Bobby Valentine's going
and
to
when
pull
they
it
play
out.
the box, they like there's something about the Springboks that the Australians just like do really well against.
Historically, I mean,
Yeah.
you could say the same thing about Wales and anyone. And like, this is a different Australian team, right? This is not Australia 5 years ago. This is a brand new team who I can't see it.
And I like Joe Schmidt.
I like Joe Schmidt.
I think
I don't think it's going to be a washout, but I think South Africa, I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to play in the areas of the field they want. They're going to bully them physically. They're going to dictate the pace of play. And whether it's by penalties or by wearing them down until they're running in tries with their backs, this is a South African win by about 20 points.
I'm going to go Australia. I think Australia are going to win this game.
Okay.
I think they're going to surprise a
What's
bunch of
your
people.
evidence?
And I have a feeling.
Okay.
I'm going off history.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so shit at calling rugby games as well. Fuck, why did you have to say that?
I got you second thing. I have this like, I have an upset feeling here.
Okay.
I like Joe Schmidt. I think their coaching setup's really good.
I just don't think they have the
I
players.
think they have a good. I think they got some good players.
No one wants Australia for the Australian party bus of good morale to continue as much as I do. Believe me, I really want Australia to be good. I want them to be having a good time. I don't have any evidence for what you're saying.
Yeah, I think Australia's gonna do. I have a gut feeling. This is all gut right now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to remember this call.
No, you won't.
No, I won't. But I'll try.
I'm gonna say Australia. Australia wins this game.
Okay.
Ooh. The controversy.
Yeah.
New Zealand, Argentina, Sky Stadium.
Where is Sky Stadium? It's in New Zealand, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That doesn't make any
I don't know
difference.
where,
New Zealand is still going to win this game comfortably.
Yeah, I didn't see anything too great from Argentina.
Even when they beat France, it was against a development. And yeah, like Argentina always have their moments, and they've got very good players, but yeah, they just haven't done.
They
enough
brought a
recently.
development side. They also like a lot of their good development guys were playing in the U20 championship.
Yeah.
So they like that was like a almost not a like a it was like just below a B team.
Yeah.
For them, and Argentina struggled.
They did.
So for Argentina to win this, they have to step up. They have to get into another. They have to. I don't see them winning.
I
this
don't
game.
see. That's how I feel about Australia, South Africa. I'm so surprised you called that way. And same here. It's like Argentina will lose this game. I don't know. Like
I just think something different. Like the Australians were more competitive in Super Rugby this year.
Okay, fair. Okay, yeah.
Right.
All right.
I thought they played really well against Wales, and besides what a lot of people like saying about Wales right now, they're a good team. They just can't finish games. They just don't have that killer instinct in them. But they're still a really good team. Like you're talking about like a team that brought a lot of other high level teams to the brink to win. Right. So this is not like Wales is not like not as shitty as people are saying they are.
Okay. I would love to believe that.
They just don't have that like these guys just don't have that killer instinct. And I think Australia, like they've shown a lot in Super Rugby this year. They're a physical side. Joe Schmidt behind the table. I think there's a lot of good things. They're home. For some reason, the Boks have a problem playing in
Australia. Assume I agree with all that. What you're saying, that contrast that to Argentina. Your next logical point is contrast that to Argentina. They don't have any of that, do they? They don't even have a professional club side. So what the fuck are they going to do? Which I agree with, obviously. Which is what I'm saying. Like I can't see any evidence. At least with if hypothetically I agreed with what you said, there's evidence to say Australia are here for this reason. Like, we just don't have any evidence of where Argentina are at comparatively, do we? Like, so, yeah, they're going to lose.
It's dodgy, but I don't know. I can see it. I can see Australia stepping up and doing
a number on South Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
But New Zealand beating England means that we've seen what New Zealand can do, and we've seen what they're trying to do, and that's going to get better because we know how New Zealand like to do things. And as much as those games against England were close, New Zealand still know what they're doing, and they will get better. And they're going to see this Argentina game as a kind of, this is the next stepping stone on our progress to our kind of game plan for the World Cup, right? So I don't think they'll be too troubled by what Argentina got to throw at them.
Yeah, I think like Scott Robertson got he got a lot of information from that England.
He did.
England tour, like, and so he knew like fuck, I can't get my words out here. What am I trying to say?
What you're trying to say, Steve, is that Scott Robertson knows how he wants to play, and he's had like a testing ground to do that in.
This is exactly what I was trying to say. Fuck, I couldn't get it out.
That's okay.
Yeah, because he saw all these things that he needs to work on, and they've been probably working on them.
And Argentina haven't had a comparable opportunity.
He got to see a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Top quality competition that took them to the brink.
Yeah.
So that was good for him. So he's going into this game probably out of all the teams, probably in the best situation.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah.
Because there's still questions. Like South Africa still has a bunch of questions. Australia, we don't know, right? Like, Wales are a good team. We just don't really know on the level. Like, would they have beaten England if they would have came? We don't know.
But I think we know where Argentina are at because they played a French developmental side and struggled, and that's where they're at. They missed Checker as well. That's a loss.
Yeah, they looked like a different team. They just looked like not like world beaters.
The game I'm most excited about, this is the last thing I want to talk about, is I'm really excited for the Australia-Argentina game. More than I'm excited for... Actually, no, it's not true. I'm really excited for New Zealand at South Africa, but I'm really excited for Australia, Argentina, because I think that is there's a lot of teams we don't know where they're at. Scotland, Argentina, Australia, even Wales. Like, I don't think we've learned enough about them in terms of the next sort of World Cup
we'll know
cycle.
where they're at when they play the All Blacks, how good they are.
Sometimes I don't think you do though, because I think All Blacks can still absolutely batter good teams. Like they could absolutely batter an Ireland or an England when they show up by fucking 4. If they get into their stride and they do that thing where they just run in tries from everywhere, like it's hard to gauge how good that team is.
But what happens
them.
if they only beat Argentina by a couple points?
That would be interesting, because they didn't beat England by a lot, did they? They haven't done that thing that they do where they absolutely run in tries against good teams in a little while. So
the last time they did it was against Argentina.
Yeah.
In the World Cup.
Yeah. So
they ran amok on them.
Yeah, they did.
So if Argentina, I think these two games really are going to prove, Australia is going to really prove how good they are, because they're going up against the world championship.
Yes.
Champions.
I agree.
And Argentina is going against the runner-up.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a big challenge, isn't it? And last time they played New Zealand, they got fucking battered.
They got battered, and I wasted money on tickets.
Yeah.
So, but Frank, I think we talked about everything we wanted to talk about.
We're really getting blood out of a stone last couple of weeks, aren't we? But I'm having fun doing it. Don't worry.
I love playing podcasts. Friends, like and share the podcast. And you can email us at thefriendsofrugbypod@gmail.com.
Please do.
And you can find us everywhere. Just Google us.
We're over there.
Yeah.
We're in the corner.
Tell your friends about us.
We're in the kitchen.
Yeah. Start bringing us up at family dinner, like you're the drunk uncle that wants to talk politics. But just bring up the Friends of Rugby.
Yeah, we're not even that political. It's safe topics.
Yeah.
You know, you can start talking about it.
All right, friends. Have a good one.
Take care.